Call the Committee of the Whole of June the 29th to order. There is an agenda there in front of you, Council. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda? Councilors Forrester and Randawa, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. I note that tonight we have two presentations. We have a little bit of a technical difficulty just getting the first one set up, so we are going to go to presentation number 2 and invite Rain Dowell to come forward and present to council. You can sit just in one of these seats right in front of me here and bring that microphone around and turn it on. Just, yep, you're good. You're live.
Hello.
Yep, you don't have to hold it. And introduce yourself and take it away.
Okay. Thank you, City Council, for meeting with me tonight. I very much appreciate your time. And I was here last year, so this is just a follow up to that. And again, I appreciate your time. So the first one I wanted to chat about was like the kind of like the intake process for when an individual wants to speak for it, like with City Hall. So I'm just gonna give you the quick rundown of what I experienced so that you can understand for someone who's not a part of City Hall, just the regular taxpayer. And I don't take anything personally. It's nothing to do with that. I'm just explaining the process and what I experienced when I wanted to speak in front of City Council. Okay, so so last year I wanted to ask the City Council and talk to them about forever chemicals in our water. And so it just gives you an email address on the website and says to email Rosa, and it doesn't say like what information you need to provide or when you can expect to hear back from the individual that you're asking, or what information they need from you, that kind of stuff. So I just kind of said I would like to present from City Hall. Can I please do that? So Rosa got back to me and we exchanged about 10 emails over the next 2 months. And so what it came down to, I'm not sure if Rosa thought if I was asking if I could present, which I wasn't asking if I could present. I was asking for a date and time that I could present. So there was a lot of back and forth with Rosa. I don't know if she didn't agree with the topic I wanted to present on, or what, or if there's some kind of process that is necessary to go through to make sure that your time isn't being wasted. I very much appreciate that, but I wasn't quite sure what was happening. So then I was given a date, so that was wonderful. And then I presented, and it seemed like the one on testing the water for forever chemicals, it seemed like that one was passed by City Council to discuss it possibly with the Aboriginal Relations Committee subcommittee. So I thought that's great, that's awesome, you know. And so then months went by and I didn't hear anything back. I didn't know if it was presented to them or not, or if it was, and I don't know what their response was to, right? So the reason I bring this up is it's getting more, it's becoming more in the forefront where taxpayers are looking for more transparency and they're looking for more accountability, right? So um for me, from someone just coming in from the outside, to me that felt like I was being gate kept, like everything was being gate kept. I don't know what kind of secrets were going on, but it seemed really important that I not present on it, which I thought was a very strange thing because this is a very common concern, you know, like people are concerned about it. So anyways, I was hoping the council would um, um, might want to kind of address it a different way so that taxpayers felt, you know, like, they send in a request, and then after a week it's been vetted and they get emailed back a date and time and that's it. Because the first go round last year when I was doing this back and forth with Rosa was I would ask for a date and time, not hear anything back. I would wait 2 weeks and then I would email her again and ask if there was a date and a time. Wouldn't hear anything back, wait another 2 weeks. Again, I wouldn't hear. So this went on for quite a while, right? So for me, it felt like, well, that's just a very strange thing because there's a lot of smart people in this community and they have a lot of great ideas. And it just seems like it's an untapped source in the community for people to come with their ideas, and maybe they could be kept in some kind of like a database or somewhere. It doesn't have to have the name of the person. It's not about the person, it's the idea. Maybe that'll spark other ideas for other people, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm saying?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is I remember the presentation from the last time, and I remember you talked about Aboriginal issues and the sort of separately the water quality issue around the microplastics, and council asked staff for a report back on the microplastics, which we received, and it was public information. We do regular testing on that, and so that was published. I don't remember that was going to go to the Aboriginal Indigenous Committee, but that's could be my memory. I like that you used the term gatekeeper because that's what it is.
Yeah.
We have a very limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And as you know, you're one of two presentations tonight.
Yeah.
And they are designed to be quick, in, out, done.
Yeah.
Not everything rises to the governance level. Right. So there's a whole lot of staff opportunity for interaction. But I hear what you're saying about making the process clearer. Yeah. And we can certainly look at everything that we can possibly do to make the process clearer. But we are pretty guarded, honestly, about what comes to the council table. So that we focus on you've got the pipe in front of you. Right. You have the pipe in front of us so that we are constantly focused, right? Focus. And yet, it is open to anybody. The other thing that's available to anybody is at every single council meeting that we have, at the beginning of the council meeting, citizens are free to come and speak on anything that we have on the agenda. Yeah. So, and I appreciate that doesn't give you the opportunity to come in with your big ideas or, new parks and playgrounds or whatever citizens might want to bring. And I love the idea that we gather more of those ideas. But any council meeting, if somebody's got a comment, if they look through the agenda and they say, oh, I really want council to know how I feel about X, Y, or Z, people are encouraged to participate that way. Yeah.
That's great.
So that being said, and I agree, we'll have a look at, and CAO Pucci, I'm sure you'll have a look at, what's on the website and what it looks like. Make it a clearer process.
Okay, that would be wonderful because I never did really receive a final answer. My question was about testing for glyphosate. I'm pronouncing that right. That's the chemical they still spray in mid and northern BC in the forestry industry. So it's still being sprayed. So if it's being sprayed, it's going in the water.
So I'll invite a comment from CAO Pucci, but one of the benefits that we have is that our water source is away from all other activity. It is in a conservancy. There is no human activity anywhere close to our water source. So that's CAO Pucci.
That's correct, Mayor. So we're on the mainland in a provincial conservancy in an area where there's no logging allowed or no anything like that. I'm going to be honest. I don't remember this being requested. And we can definitely look at our results. I know we looked at the microplastics and all that, and we had negligible non-detect results on that.
Right. Yeah, so that was part of the original request. Was I was asking if the um, Indigenous Relations Subcommittee could, um, if they could arrange for a separate assessment, water assessment, um, because from what I understand, I think it's Northern Health, right? Northern Health is the one that does these testings, um, and you know, I think it was Penticton. Uh, they're now there's something going on to do with a lawsuit because of the different chemicals that have been used in that area. So now that health body is suing these companies. So, but that doesn't solve the problem.
So
That
Northern Health is the authority.
yeah,
They're the go-to. They're the ones we use. They use, yeah, like
yeah. So I would like us I would like the Indigenous Relations Committee to perform their own and find
yeah.
their own company and get an
No,
assessment.
no. It's not going to be. It's not the purpose of our Indigenous Relations Committee.
Mm.
So the purpose of the Indigenous Relations Committee is to advise council on processes and things within the city and how we can be more inclusive. Now, if they want to initiate that kind of a request of council, by all means. But
Okay.
I'm not going to go to
Thank
the
you for
Indigenous
okay.
Relations Committee and ask them. You had a second topic you wanted to talk
I
about
did.
tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So the second idea I had was around the water source. So it seems like this freshwater lake that we have, the only freshwater lake in this area, is what we're using for drinking water and what has traditionally been used for drinking water since the place was settled, apparently, right? Um, but there from talking with different members in the community that lived here a long time, the water quality has always been an issue here. Um, there have always been boil water advisories and this type of thing, and I wondered about that because we live in a rainforest, and I looked up the how much water. If we had, I think it was 10 or 11 large cisterns, that would supply the drinking and cooking water for this town. Just
So,
the rain coming out of the sky would supply, we wouldn't need to use a natural resource like this, the only freshwater lake. There's water coming out of the sky.
so you say only freshwater lake, but there are hundreds of lakes surrounding us,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of freshwater lakes.
Mm.
The the water supply that we have is very funny because we've had boil water advisories for the last, I want to say, 6 years maybe, in large numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, not.
Mm-hmm.
And the boil water advisories have largely been precipitated by the work we're doing on the systems to rebuild the dam, rebuild the water pipes, and the work generates oftentimes not even problem water, but suspect water. And so Northern Health says uh, you must boil, even if they don't have positive tests of something wrong. The for example, the chlorine levels can drop too low. That source of water 30 years ago was voted the very best water in British Columbia.
Right.
And so for many years, people celebrated living in Prince Rupert because we had the best water in British Columbia. Um, and so, while I appreciate the idea that maybe capturing rainwater, capturing rainwater comes with all kinds of issues all unto itself, in terms of quality. I happen to know because I run an off-grid system, and how difficult it is to maintain rainwater to drinking level qualities. Um, so
Well, there would have to be some. So right now we're dumping a bunch of chlorine into the water, which that can also cause long-term problems when those levels get too high. So, and there is a lot in the water right now. I've lived in quite a few places, and it's I've never had such dry hands from washing my dishes as I do here. So I notice a big difference there.
So the one, so I'm not going to go into the chlorination. It's tested. It meets all the standards, all that sort of stuff. We have really good, safe drinking water in Prince Rupert. I drink from the tap all the time. But the issue that we do have is we have tannins in the water, which come from the natural. It just leaches off the barks and
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
as water enters. So, which is why you sometimes often have coloring in our water, right? One of the things that we are working hard on, so we rebuilt the dam, we're rebuilding the water pipes. We're now working on water filtration.
Right.
So water filtration would make up part of the water treatment. You chlorinate, and one of the benefits of that is we will get clearer water, minus the tannins.
Right. And I mean, I was just spitballing basically,
Yeah.
right? I just look at what I do with my water in my filter. There's a charcoal filter that filters out the forever chemicals and chlorine and different things like that.
Yeah.
So just that on a bigger scale, basically, right?
Yeah.
On top of the cistern, so that the water's going in, it's getting filtered right there before it even goes into the cistern, and then use the existing infrastructure we already have for the pipes.
Yeah.
It just seems like it might be cheaper and easier to keep the water clean. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is an idea.
Listen,
that
I appreciate the idea. Councillor Forster, I can see you want to get in.
Thanks. So in my job,
Yes.
whenever anybody has ideas to bring forward to change how we do things, we 100% welcome it. And I like the idea of maybe we look at our process. But one of the things we also do is we add in there, there's a cost to everything we want to change.
Yeah.
And so we add in, when people are bringing forward an idea, they suggest where the cost would come from. So for this example, like doing that water thing, it would then require somebody to have a bit of a precursory look into what the cost for that would be, and a suggestion of what budget we would cut.
Like a cost benefit analysis, like what we're doing now, this is what it's costing, this is what this
the cost benefit analysis, but also what we would stop doing if it's going to cost more money.
Right.
Because as council, we could have lots of really good ideas, but they might require us to increase taxes.
Right.
And so if that's what the taxpayer base wants us to do, I'm all for it. But I think that gives the opportunity for people to turn their minds to thinking of how we have to think.
Right.
What are we not going to do if we do this idea?
Right.
And another reason why I'm bringing this up is basically the LNG Canada plant in Kitimat, so they're flaring like crazy, right? And those chemicals are going into the air. Those chemicals are landing in the water now. So that's benzene. Those are nasty chemicals. So it's not a matter, it's like, is it there? Okay, great if it's not. Is it? But if it is there, what can I do to mitigate the danger or the damage or whatever it is, right?
Right.
That's all it is. It's not looking for somebody doing something wrong. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's what are we looking at, and how could this be solved? How could this be dealt with in a way where moving forward it's not continual, boil water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some kind of
Yeah.
forward thinking.
The boil water is, I mean, first of all, we haven't. I shouldn't
Yeah,
say it.
knock on wood.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it, but you know what I'm thinking. But as we make the changes to the system and as it gets improved and the distribution system's improved and the water filtration system is, and even no matter what you did, if you do rainwater capture, you still have to do all the filtration and the chlorination and the whatever. They're all, we are mandated by Canada to have triple barrier protection of our water system by 2030. It wouldn't matter, where the water comes from. It needs to have that, and so I think the days. Oh man, I'm so wanting to say this without jinxing things. I think we're moving closer to the days where boil water advisories will become very rare. How's that sound?
Okay, that sounds good.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you bet. CEO Pucci, did we get Nika?
I believe they are just going to be logging on right now. I just said if you have trouble, I can give II is the gentleman's name a call.
CEO Pucci, do you mind just clicking that microphone off?
Sure.
Too? Thanks. Well, we'll give it a minute and.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As I was just saying, is that I sent the link, and if II can't get on, I am just gonna call his cell phone. So we'll just give it a minute here.
For people that are maybe tuned in and wondering why we're waiting, we have the committee of the whole meeting, and there are two presentations. We've had the one, and the second one is from the Haida Gwaii Museum with regards to the poles and a repatriation ceremony project. All right, and so they're going to be dialing in. What it's about? Maybe I'll babble until the. We've got poles in Prince Rupert that I've always heard differing stories on. They're Haida poles, but they're not Tsimshian poles, but they're carved by a Tsimshian carver, and none of it ever made sense to me. I could never kind of walk around and go, oh, okay, that's why. And in the last little while, and there's probably people in the community that have known this all along, but in the last little while, through a bunch of digging with other people and some work being done with the Haida Gwaii Museum, is that? Yes. They're in? Yes. Ah, there we go. All right. So rather than me fumbling the explanation, I'm going to invite Nika Collison from the Haida Gwaii Museum to speak. Nika, are you there?
There's no Nika. It is me, representing the Haida Gwaii Museum.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just this. Okay. You do not look at all like Nika, but thank you.
Sorry about that. Nika's son is a little ill, so she can't make it.
All right. Take it away.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you a little background of the polls. What I have written down. The Haida Gwaii Museum, partnered with Gwaii is working with the Hereditary Chiefs Council, Council of Haida Nation, the Archipelago Management Board, and the Skidiga Repatriation Committee, a subcommittee of the Greater Haida Repatriation Committee. And this is to return 7 poles back to their original homes in Gwaii. Today we are celebrating the 5 historic monumental poles that was on last Wednesday, June 24th. 5 poles were returned back home to Skungwa. And in early September or spring 2027, Two other poles will be returning home, one to Tanu and one to Una, so Tanu and Skadans. Many poles were taken from Haida Gwaii in the 30s under a project initiated by the City of Prince Rupert and the Department of Indian Affairs. They were re-erected in Prince Rupert as a tourist attraction along the Canadian Railway until the mid-60s. They were then taken down and moved to RBCM, the Royal British Columbia Museum, between 63 and 71. CN Rail and the Chamber of Commerce had some of these poles replicated by a Tsimshian artist, William Jeffrey. The City of Prince Rupert provided the space for them to stand. These are the Haida poles you see standing outside of the Civic Center today. When the original Haida poles got to RBCM, the then curator, Peter McNair, realized these Haida poles had been unethically removed from Haida Gwaii and had 12 poles repatriated back to Haida Gwaii on March 29, 1976. Two poles originated from the north end of Haida Gwaii, so these two have been safe kept in storage by Chief Idensu James Hart since their return. 4 more of the repatriated poles now stand in the Haida Gwaii Museum, 2 from Skadans, 2 from Tanu, and they were re-erected with permission of the affiliated clans. The other 6 poles, all house frontal poles, were unfortunately burned when the Haida Gwaii Museum storage facility caught fire on January 12th of 77. The fire report said the fire raged due to the creosote that had been applied to the backs of the poles to adhere them to metal pole braces when they stood in Prince Rupert. The burn is not overly deep, leaving the poles still in somewhat good shape and the carving still clearly visible. One of the house frontal poles that burned is from Skadans, one is from Tanu. The other 4 are from Skungwai, or Ninstance, or Anthony Island, with one of these 4 poles originally standing in front of House 10. All 6 burnt poles were stored at Kai Unagai, the Haida Heritage Center, in a Quonset hut until 2000 when the Haida Heritage Center began its construction. The poles were then stored in Skidegate Band Council's old fire hall until it had to be taken down in 2024. The poles were moved back to Kai and lived in the Haida Heritage Center carving house for about a year, then moved to the vacant lot beside the Haida Gwaii Museum. The 5th pole returned to Skungwai is a mortuary pole. It was removed from Skungwai in 57 during a BC pole preservation project. The pole was exhibited on University Boulevard in 1958 as part of UBC's celebration of the centenary of the British Columbia becoming a crown colony. When the current Museum of Anthropology building opened in 1976, this pole was on display in the museum's Great Hall. In 2003, the Haida Repatriation Committee and the Haida Gwaii Museum, working under the authority of the Haida Nation, informed MOA, Museum of Anthropology, that they would be seeking the repatriation of this pole in the future. In 2009, MOA removed the pole from public view. UBC returned the pole to Haida Gwaii in 2019 upon request for its repatriation. It was safely stored at the Gwaihana shop until its journey home to Skungwai this past May. And I have a video and some photos from that. All 5 poles returned to Skungwai have had some of the early colonial institutions very active in recognizing the situation and wanting to work with us to make things right. The cost of repatriating the poles to Skidegate was covered by RBCM and Museum of Anthropology. RBCM and City of Prince Rupert The event began with a food burning in pairs to send poles off in a good way on May 15th. On May 18th, the 5 poles were loaded on the MV Haida Spare, and on May 19th, were boated down to Skungwa. On May 21st, the 5 poles were heli-slung from the deck of the Haida Spear back to their original location in the village. Details of all involved in removing the poles and the lineage affiliation for each pole are still being actively researched and plotted out. So I'll show you some of the photos from the Haida Spirit. So you can see the 5 poles here on the deck of the Haida Spirit, leaving Dodging Geats, or formerly known as the Queen Charlotte City, up here. This one was from MOA, Museum of Anthropology. Here it is laying in situ in Skungwai, and it was heli slung down. This is me behind our skipper, Gooks, on our way to Skungwai. It was a 4.5-hour journey from Dodging Geats boat launch to the village of Skungwai. Other people had the privilege of being choppered down to Skungwai. I got to jump on a boat and spend the day on the water. So this is us at in the village of Skungwai, getting ready for the start of the ceremonies. We had a videographer. Gwai Hannes will be doing a video on this. A couple of our elders were able to make it down. This is Quaganut, or Diane Brown, and her husband Gunfoot, Larry Brown, and one of our hereditary chiefs, Gyagu Jung, Robert Ross. This gentleman here, Mervyn Dunn, he is one of the last few descendants from the village of Skungwai. He was a 60s scoop kid, and it wasn't until the 80s that he knew of his Haida heritage and helped fight the Lions at Lyle Island. And this is him here standing in the village, and it was his first time there. He's 73, and this is his first time in his family's village. My skipper taking a break. This is showing some of the village here where we went to. We gathered for a group photo. There was about 50 of us down there. And I think that was the first time there was so many Haidas in the village of Skungwai in over 100 years or more. Here's the 2 elders that got to go down, Quaganut and Gunfuat again. I have a quick video of the slinging of the poles for you. So that was back in May. The day that the poles were going to be slung into the village of Skungwai, it was blowing a little bit harder. It was foggy. The chopper was down there, and they had to wait a couple hours for the weather. And one of our Haida women that were down there started to sing a prayer song, and not too long after she was done, the fog lifted up, the wind died down enough for the helicopter to sling those poles into position. And they were placed almost right where they were taken as well. And then on June 24th, we had that repatriation ceremonies in Skungwai starting at noon. We had a procession because there were some ancestors that were taken from House Pit 10 over the past like 2021 to 2023. There was a Living Landscapes project through Parks Canada and Boyhanis, and so we reinterred the ancestors that were taken from Skungwai and brought them back to where they were taken from. So we went to the fire on the beach. We fed our ancestors by burning food. And then we moved into the village area where we talked about the poles, the burnt ones and the one returned from Moa. And then we had food. We had a good feast in the village. And then right after that, right after the food was shared, we had that presentation by Mervyn. All in all, it was a really great day. It was a sunny day, and just as we were leaving Skungwai, it started to blow pretty hard. And on the way back home on the boat, it took an extra hour because of the wind and the storms. But we made it. We're here. So hopefully I didn't take too much time.
Let me see if there's any questions here. Any questions or comments from council? CEO Pucci.
I just want to say I thank you for coming. I know Nika couldn't make it tonight, so thank you for stepping in. The work you guys are doing is extremely important, and we wouldn't have known about it unless you guys reached out to us. And so thank you very much for reaching out to us. I know the mayor will probably have a couple words about closing of a book or a story, and because he uses that quite well. But personally, this has been a journey I've been on for over a year around the poles we have here and what they represent and how do we honor them and understand the story. And by you guys reaching out, we're able to get more information. So we will be entertaining a report tonight around support. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to echo that, and you know what I was saying just before you came on was these poles have always been for me a mystery, right? The Tsimshian Carver Haida poles didn't understand, you know, and now for me the story is much more complete. The notion that and you know I'll give people slack, you know, people doing the best they can with what they've got in the moment of time. Thought it would be a great idea to take those wonderful looking pieces of art from Haida Gwaii and put them up in the city of Prince Rupert, where they'll be seen by so many more people. And you know, and so you do these things, right? And the city was complicit in it, and CN was complicit in it, and the Chamber of Indian Affairs and the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm sure there was great celebration. And how many tourists have seen those poles over the years, and then, of course, they go down to the Royal BC Museum, but because they're going away, a local Tsimshian artist is hired to make replicas, relative poles, of the originals. And so the originals leave, but we've still got the facsimile. And they entertain tourists for a year, and we walk by them, and they're incredible pieces of art. I mean, they really are. And now, in a different era, through a different lens, people are hearing things differently, and we're hearing the spiritual stories behind these poles, and that they have a place where they belong, and that they are attached to the land, and they're attached to the people of the land, and so, in some ways, it's a wonderful story of it took us a long time to get here, but we're getting back to where we maybe could have, should have been right from the very beginning. And we have some work to do here in Prince Rupert with those relative poles to make sure that they're treated properly, but also with respect to the title holders of the land on which they're erected. And so thank you so much for the work that you've done. You've enlightened us, and thanks for the photos. Haida Gwaii is just such a beautiful place, and those remote villages that very few souls ever get to see. To be able to just look at your photos, incredible. What a logistics program that was to put those in. And council will be talking about this a little bit later in our regular meeting. Thank you so much. Any other comments from council before we? Hawa.
Hawa to you.
Thanks for joining us. All right, council. With that, unless there's any other inquiries, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Adey, Councillor Forrester, all in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. All right, we will call to order the. I gotta get to it. Here we go. Call to order the regular meeting of Monday, June the 29th. I do have one late item. It is a request for us to join with others in, it came from the U.S. consul, and so we can have that perhaps under, not under bylaws, well, let's just do it under the council roundtable. I'll introduce it under the council roundtable, item number 9. If there are no other additions or deletions, I'd entertain a motion to accept the agenda as Councillors Randhawa and Forster. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. All right. We have a presentation of the 2025 annual report, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say how it's going to start, but go ahead, CEO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the last meeting, council and the public saw a slideshow that was the part of the annual report. The annual report is out right now. We encourage everybody to take a look at it. Our communications manager has done an amazing job on not only the presentation but the report. She's fabulous. But in this session, we thought we would show a video on it, and these are both available on our website for viewing. So the presentation will be there, also the video will be there, but we just thought it was a different way to showcase the annual report. So I will put it up.
I warn you, the video's a little long and the speaker a little boring. Settle in, get your popcorn.
Just gonna pause it. Share the screen. Share.
Go over to the far right where it says share sound.
Sorry, where, sir?
Where it says share options on the far right.
On the far
Up there.
right, yeah.
Down there.
Oh, share sound. Okay. Oh, thank you very much for that. Yeah. We want this one and share.
All right, so why don't you tell me a little bit about what is going on for Prince Rupert in the next little while?
Yeah, so lots. For starters, we just put out the annual report. That gives you an idea of what's been happening over the recent time frame. But given that we're getting towards the end of this council's mandate, I thought maybe we could go a little further back and take a look at a number of the things that have happened. Of course, tremendous overlap between councils, and there's a ton of work that we get to complete, but really the credit goes to the previous council, and the same thing happens in perpetuity, right? And so I don't want it to feel like we're taking credit for all of this, but we have been able to carry through with the vision that's established before us, and I just need to make sure the credit goes where it should. One of the things that's not really a municipal issue, but I'm really proud of, is the response we had to the healthcare crisis that we were having in the community. Councillor Nick Adey led the charge on a task force that helped with recruitment, retention, and it's had tremendous success. Northern Health does a great job of finding the names of the doctors, bringing them to the community, but not a particularly good job of then landing them. And so a local committee made up of local citizens got involved in terms of making sure every doctor felt really welcome, really landed well. And the local medical community came out and supported that as well. And the end result is we haven't had an ER closure now for months and months and months. We've gone through some really, tight times in terms of family vacations and schedules and everything else, and still made it through without ER closure. So very proud of that work that's been done. Council continued the previous council's development incentives. So all kinds of things in terms of building things in the downtown core, waiving fees, waiving development charges, parking restrictions, all those things, just anything that we can to encourage the building, particularly in the downtown core, but building in general. A couple of projects that we've actually seen result from that. We didn't build them, but the ILW Hall, new structure in the downtown core. We haven't seen that for a long time, right? The new A&W, a new structure in the downtown core, a new business that wouldn't have been there otherwise. There are others that we know are coming. We're just waiting for the final approvals that are coming either from another level of government or the last minute clearing of hurdles internally. So keep your eyes and ears open, because I believe over this summer you're going to see some great announcements for more structures being built in the downtown core. And of course, a huge part of that has been housing, which is desperately needed. And what's taking place, honestly, is not yet enough. But the city, the previous council did part of it. This council's done some of it, making land available, working with First Nations, working with others to help ensure that projects get off the ground. So you have the 11th Avenue housing project from Lac Lalams. You have the 9th Avenue project down by the new middle school. And the middle school is a whole nother project in our community that we take for granted, but it took a long time for the school board to lobby to get the money to have that done. There's the Lac Lalams apartment building on 3rd Avenue across from Save On Foods that's going up. There is the Seal Cove project, which we're seeing coming out of the ground now, which is kind of exciting. There's the McKay Street from Kitkatla. So all of these projects are going to take some pressure off the housing, the rental market. We know that more needs to be done, and we're working with anybody that wants to build in Prince Rupert. And particularly, we want to see some single family homes and some neighborhoods opened up. Everything we're doing takes money. And so there's been an incredible effort in terms of chasing down new revenue sources so that the burden on local taxpayers is kept as low as possible. Never low enough, never low enough, but keeping it as low as possible and still being able to reach for those big projects and get them done. And so over the course of the last number of years, we celebrated starting a $200 million project with $45 million of local money. That's incredible multiplying effect when you think about $45 million of local money produces $200 million of new infrastructure in the big project. And the big project, of course, is that ongoing infrastructure replacement of pipes. A whole lot of the work has happened out of sight where people don't see it, the Shawantland roads and across the way, across the harbor. And of course, we're building on the work done by the last council again and getting us a new dam. But all of that work is now starting to move through the community. 11th Avenue East is proceeding, part done, a new part being bid out, Alfred Street being done. We're just ticking off the neighborhoods and starting to see new pavement going into places, new sidewalks going into places. And so neighborhoods actually looking better than they did when we first went in. We had the success of the RBA lobby, and that was a 10-year lobby for local governments across the Northwest. Prince Rupert's share of that is substantial. It's 5 years of $6.8 million delivered every single year. And it's not particularly fettered. We can spend it within a bucket of opportunities, but we very much made the commitment that this would be new projects that we could have never done without the money. This is not and the premier, when he gave it to us, really clear. This isn't so we can come and lower taxes for people. This is so we can get more done with the tax money we have. And again, we've been incredibly successful at taking that money and multiplying it against other money. So over the course of 5 years, that's $34 million that is coming into the community that can be used for all kinds of projects. And the list is long. If you go through the annual report, you'll see a whole lot of it. We settled the PILT with the Port of Prince Rupert, and that has been PILT is payment in lieu of taxes. At senior levels of government, both the province and the federal government don't have to pay tax the normal way a taxpayer pays, but they pay what's called a payment in lieu of tax. There was an ongoing dispute that goes back for multiple years, almost a decade, between the city of Prince Rupert and the Port of Prince Rupert. And I've got to say, the Port of Prince Rupert and the city have really forged a new relationship, and we're working on things side by side like we should be always. And one of the things that we've solved together is PILT. And so that will see an increase in the money coming into the city. Again, gives us an opportunity to reach for more, to do more, and get things done. Watson Island, huge opportunity. Here's a pulp mill site that lots of communities have ended up with old pulp mill sites, and they're just a drain on the community. Previous mayor and council turned that into a real winning proposition. You're now seeing Pembina expand its operations on Watson Island. You're seeing new activities, and there will be announcements over the next months, but even years, in terms of how what that money allows us to do is do capital works that we would have never got to any other way. And so I think of things like the RCMP building and the Public Works building, funded through investments from the Watson Island through Legacy Prince Rupert, that would be burdens on the taxpayer, but have spared the taxpayer a lot of additional costs. We're focusing that money on capital works so that we don't ever get hooked on it. If for some reason there's a downturn on Watson Island, we can just stop doing the capital works, and we don't have to start laying people off and everything else. So that's been a whole focus and a massive opportunity for the future. And I mentioned RBA. We're negotiating now with the province to say, okay, that's really good to have a 5-year deal, but let's turn the 5-year deal into a 20-year deal and into a 50-year deal. And so again, just looking for ways to fund the city of Prince Rupert without knocking on taxpayers' door more than they can bear. So all of that, I think about other buildings that have been done. Wheelhouse was just being completed as this council came into being. There's a piece of infrastructure on the waterfront that was derelict for years, and now I watch people enjoy it. Half the year you can whale watch from Wheelhouse. Where else in the world could you sit and have pizza and watch whales going by? I mean, it's incredible, right? And what a wonderful addition to the Prince Rupert waterfront. And when we think about waterfront, there's other projects that are coming. We have fully funded through grants a waterfront redevelopment that's going to take place over the next year or two that will shift what's happening down on the waterfront and make it a community space where people can gather. We already gather down there, but there'll be so much more to draw people down there and help them use that area. Same thing with Mariners Park, again, through grants. There's work being done in Mariners Park. And so on and on and on we go. Tremendous activity. I don't know how our staff actually keep up with it. There is so much going on that I know people's heads spin sometimes, just trying to keep up with all the different fronts that council is asking staff to continue to push forward on. Having said all of that, I don't want to give the impression that we're there, that we can rest on our laurels. There's so much more to do. There are. I have to talk about it every time I get a chance because I want people to understand there's heavy lifting in front of us. I'm not trying to depress anybody. I just want to be real. Council is going to have to remain focused for the next few terms at least on big major projects. We are currently knocking on doors and trying to do what we can to raise roughly $75 million for water treatment. That would be the final piece: water dam, water pipes, water treatment, right? And then you've got a complete system that's fully reliable, and people of Prince Rupert for the next century can count on delivering clean, clear, safe drinking water. But there's the sewage treatment. We are at the Park Avenue wetlands project is being developed right now, and I think within a reasonable period of time will be brought online. It'll take several hundred houses off of dumping raw sewage into the ocean and begin with some treatment. We believe that's going to be successful, and if it's successful, it's something we can do over and over and over again. But one way or the other, we are mandated by 2030, that's not very far away, to go to full sewage treatment. And to go to full sewage treatment is literally hundreds of millions of dollars. There's just no way around it. And so that's going to have to be a focus for the next council. People drive over our bridges. Of course, we redid 6th Avenue Bridge a little bit ago. We're in the course of redoing 2nd Avenue Bridge, which has taken far longer, has been closed for far longer than people wanted to, or at least impacted, because on a last minute basis, through a last minute inspection, it was discovered that the pedestrian walkway was unsafe. And so when you end up in those situations, you are starting from scratch. And that's what's happening with 2nd Avenue Bridge. They're going to be starting very soon on the work to replace the surface area there and the pedestrian walkway, and it'll be safe. But we know that both those bridges are timed out. We're looking at, you can argue about numbers, but 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years before those bridges are end of life. They were built in an era before our big heavy trucks and buses and fire trucks fully loaded. And then we put layers and layers of asphalt on top of them, on top of that. And you can imagine the impact on that structure of a fire truck going across fully loaded and having to slam on the brakes, and what that does in the forces on those bridges. So we've got we don't even have a ballpark number for what replacing those bridges will be. I don't think it'll be a replacement with bridges. It'll be a replacement with alternate routes of some sort. But that's going to be knocking on the next council's door for sure. And so there's going to be a focus on that. The fire hall has been much like the RCMP building was considered to be end of life and with liability issues, the old fire hall or the old RCMP building. Our fire hall is in that situation as well. There are geotechnical surveys that question whether we would be able to get apparatus out of the building in the event of an earthquake, for example. Well, that's when you need to get apparatus out of the building. And so there's going to have to be a plan to replace the fire hall. All of that is to say, we've done great work. And I just applaud the citizens of Prince Rupert. You have been amazing at buckling down and saying, yes, we need to be part of preparing this place for the next generation. What I'm trying to give you is an accurate picture of what's coming next. The need to stay laser focused on the things that most need to be done, and it can only be done by us. It's easy for different councils to get caught in political issues and move off topic and start chasing pet projects and everything else. But the only way this work gets done is if we stay hyper focused. It's why we have a section of old pipe in the council chamber on the boardroom desk, so that it is there in front of us every single time we meet. We're staring at that broken piece of pipe to remind us that we need to keep our eyes focused on what really matters for the city of Prince Rupert, what will make or break the success of the Port of Prince Rupert. And they and industry have been tremendous allies with us in approaching senior levels of government so that we can work on building Canada's third largest port to be Canada's second largest port to be the most attractive community that you could ever dream of living in. Thank you so much for being part of it.
Veronica broke it up, but she literally sat down, put the camera on, and I went. All right. It was long, but I think it captures a lot of what council's been working on. And I'll just say now to council, really, really proud of the work we've done together. Really proud of what staff has done for us in terms of getting it done. I think we stretch them all the time. With that, is there anything else you want to say about the annual report, CAO Pucci?
I know that it's just out right now, and we encourage everyone to have a look at it. Thank you.
There you go. It is now time for public comments with regards to any item on the agenda, but there's no member of the public present, so I will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has minutes for approval, minutes of the special meeting to close June the 5th, minutes of the special meeting to close June the 15th, minutes of the regular meeting of June the 15th, reports for receipt, a report from Director of Planning and Development Services with regards to a notice of contract award over $500,000. There's a correspondence for action, North Coast Regional District, North and Central Pacific Coast Ferry Service Levels, invitation to join the advocacy, North Coast Regional District's joint advocacy meeting regarding Alaska Ferry reinstatement, request for proclamation of July 19th to 25th as National Drowning Prevention Week, request for proclamation of October 15th as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day, and October 26th and October 2026 is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. City of Prince George with regards to support for Northern Rural Homeowners Grant. Correspondence for receipt, response to council inquiries, and North Coast Central Local Government Association AGM highlights. Can I have a motion, please, to accept the recommendation that all items on the consent agenda be approved and received as requested? Councillor Adie, Councillor Randhawa. Any questions, discussions, items you want to highlight? Councillor Adie.
And thank you. I have a couple of things I'd like to ask about. I don't think it rises to the level of wanting to take them out and make different decisions. But I think the public may be interested in some more information about some of them. So with your permission, I'll ask first about the 6B, the notice of contract. Excuse me. First of all, the continuity of the award, giving the contract to the person who's already, the group that's already doing the work in the ground, makes total sense. I completely understand that. I'm just curious about why in the presentation, in the agenda, the local contractor is not named, whether there's an actual reason for that. And secondly, it is an award of a contract over $500,000. And I remember that there are different grades of discretion that staff have based on the value of contracts that are awarded. So I'm just wondering what the requirements are normally for a contract that is over $500,000.
CAO Pucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will answer the second part, and then I can defer the first part to Miv, our Director of Development Services, who is online. So with the purchasing policy, staff can still award $500,000 to $1 million. However, we have to report those to council. And then anything over $1 million, council actually needs to do the award. So we have the ability to approve through process, and then it needs to be reported. And then I can, if that satisfies council. Yeah. And then I'll defer the first part of the question around named local contractor to our Director of Development Services.
Director Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report was just, it didn't need to name the contractor, but I can name the contractor. It's awarded to Broadwater Industries. for this project. Broadwater has been contracted by the developer already for all on-site work, so on the private property, and so the continuity of work was determined to be awarded to Broadwater Industries for the off-site work, so service connections and everything in the road right of way.
Councillor Ady, anything?
Thanks. That's fine. That clarifies that. The other item that I've got a couple of questions about is in the response to the council inquiries. First, an appreciation. I mentioned at the last meeting that when we were talking about the regulatory changes that have burdened our budget, it would be useful to have a timeline and some dates. As a former history teacher, and I see those there, so I appreciate that. The Second Avenue Bridge, which you were talking about in the video, it's inescapably going to be a subject of conversation. So I have some questions about both the item on the temporary closure time and duration, and also the traffic update.
Yep.
First, regarding the temporary closure time and duration, regarding the additional costs for the city related to traffic management and pedestrian accommodations, do we know how much and any potential impact those additional costs will have on the city's budget?
CEO Pucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we don't have the exact amount at this time, but we are capturing them and we will be reporting them at a future meeting. We appreciate that there is going to be extra costs associated with this. We know that there has been some work done to the Moresby Trail, and there will be some slight delay claims associated with the contractor as well.
I think that also touches on my second question, which was the week or 10 days delay. Has that created a cost based on the contractors having to change their schedule? But I think sounds like we'll find out a little more about that as it develops. My other questions are about the traffic update, and I want to just put a caveat in there that I'm cautious about asking questions which might be critical of staff, because I think for the most part they do good work with some tough issues. But in this case, we were told that the traffic volume was underestimated, and so we had to kind of take a pause and go to Plan B on how we manage this project. I'm just curious about whether when we began to limit the traffic across the bridge and we put in the temporary lights, and I know I brought up the subject of how long those lights were when they were running automatically. Would there not have been some form of a study done about the traffic volume at that time that would give us a sense of what that volume would be that would have helped with this current closure? And my second question I'll ask, and then I'll be done.
Okay.
The second question is rerouting the pedestrians through Moresby. I can appreciate that that's the practical solution. It's the end of June, and I know that some people will find that inconvenient for the next month or two. I'm just hoping that it's that we're going to be through that portion of rerouting people through Moresby Creek before September, when we have young students walking to school, and that wouldn't be an ideal solution for those in that situation.
CEO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor. So at this point, the timelines, we'll have it done by the end of the summer, which is very important. We have lost a couple weeks, unfortunately, but there's still be time before school starts. But I have to caveat that by saying things can happen and be found during construction that may prolong that. But we have to acknowledge that that's not the best scenario to put people through the park. We were trying our best not to do that. We looked at several different options, including shuttle services, taxi vouchers, staff volunteers, all of that, because we knew that it was not the best option. But the reality is that there isn't another option because we don't own any other property, and so we have to do that. And we did really the best that we could by lighting and security for that. We will be doing our best to ensure that it is done before the school year, though. On your first question around volumes, we should have done better. I will fully admit that. I think that where we fell down a bit was not realizing that none of these things could happen at the same time. So we did have an estimate on car volumes going back and forth. We had an estimate on people walking, and we thought, that train isn't used that much to back up. The issue was that none of these could happen at the same time. So if you had a pedestrian, everything had to stop so that pedestrian could walk all the way across. And when a train came, everything else stopped. You had people on bikes, everything stopped. Instead of having the traffic go with the pedestrian, which we thought that was what was going to be the process. So that is on us. When we started, we found right away that it just wasn't something that could be dealt with and handled over a 2-month term. So we had to take a break and reassess and look at it again. And we've submitted a new traffic plan that will allow two-way traffic down there, continuous two-way traffic, but will not have pedestrian. We can't have it all down there. So that's the best way that we could put it together.
Councillor Eady.
So on a silver lining note, I guess what all of this does is reinforce how critical that bridge is.
Yeah.
Which may energize discussions about what to do with it in the long term.
Yeah.
Because it is a point of vulnerability for a significant number of people in town.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we ended up unexpectedly having to close the pedestrian access. Imagine a scenario where you have to unexpectedly close the bridge. You hope that never happens, but yeah, you're absolutely right. CEO Pucci.
Thank you. So I do agree with council and with the mayor. It is extremely important that we focus on the alternate route study, which has been a part of this year's budget, and we will have a plan by the end of the year.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't echo the comments from Councillor Eady, but I did have a few other things I wanted to just clarify, maybe take them out. We'll see what the answers are.
All right.
So the first one, the City of Prince George has raised their proposal or their resolution for UBCM. We put forward a similar one for the Northern Homeowners Grant. I think ours was specific more to seniors than this. So would ours still be going forward? Would it pause? What happens?
So my sense is we would just keep it going forward, and UBCM can do what they want to do with the two. But I'll turn to CEO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor. That is correct. I chatted with our deputy CAO, Rosa Miller, today, and she said to keep it in place, and that's the best for us to ensure that they can run. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My next one relates to the responses to council about the liquid waste. So in there, I really appreciate, similar to Councillor Eady, how this is all laid out for us, because it's a lot. What I'm left uncertain with is in the responses to me, there's discussion about how all the bylaws were changed. Or there was lengthy changes to the bylaws. I think it said something to that effect. Do we think that these changes are going to reduce the likelihood of penalties in the future?
CEO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to make sure I have the question right. So when we did changes to our solid waste bylaw, which included the liquid waste dumping ability. So when staff brought that forward, we brought forward opportunities, and our suggestions were to have more controls in place, like no mixing of loads and things like that, and better controls. And I mean, I believe that better controls could ultimately reduce fines of just so that there isn't anything dropped in there that we don't know. I mean, and also we're able to trace back where something came from. If we have single loads only and we know that there was something in it and a test result, we can say, well, that came from there and that you're responsible for that waste. So the answer to that for me would be yes, yeah.
Councillor.
Thanks. Further in the report, it also talks about council did not support raising a lot of the fees. We wanted to keep it lower. And there's also a comment to the effect of it might not be cost neutral. It might actually be costing taxpayers to be doing this. So my question is, do staff recommend that we continue with this? This started as a pilot where we thought we might gain money from doing it that would maybe offset cost to taxpayers. It now, benefit of a couple of years of trying it out, it's costing taxpayers. Should we continue with it? What are staff recommending?
CAO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor. I think what we'll do is we'll take that away as staff and really look at what it's cost us versus rates and do a little bit of a business case for a council. It may take a couple meetings before we can get that back to you. The reality is that, and I believe I put this in the notes, is that these types of facilities should not be at a landfill. That's kind of commingling different types of waste. Where these are in many different communities are attached to their liquid waste facilities or lagoons or things like that, where it's, you know, common waste going with common waste and getting treated in a common way. The idea for us was we would like to look at putting it at our industrial treatment plant in the future, or sizing one of our new lagoons that we would create, and sizing it to intake this waste. However, we don't have that ability today. So if we went and closed this site, then there wouldn't be anything in the region for anybody, any of the users. So we would have to take that away and really look at what the thoughts are around this certain facility today and how long it would be before we would actually have another place open for the area. Thank you.
Thanks. And my last one is about the proclamation, specifically the one about pregnancy and infant loss. All for doing a proclamation. I wonder if we could ask the I think it was Oak Clinic, something to that effect, if they could give us some statistics on our area. I know pregnancy and infant loss is devastating for many families. So if we're going to do a proclamation in October, perhaps some information for people to seek resources should they experience that.
CAO Pucci, is that something we can?
Yes, yeah, we can take that away.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to make a quick comment on some of your questions around the liquid waste. First of all, a question, CAO Pucci, was it ever contemplated that Port Edward's sewage treatment plant would be used for that purpose?
Thank you, Mayor. It has, and they have used it in the past, but what has happened is their system was getting fouled by the different waste coming in, and it was killing all of the bugs, and then they'd have to restart. So they put a stop to taking in any additional waste from trucks.
And just the comment I want to make is that CAO Pucci would never come right out and do this, because he is a great respecter of council and council's decision making and the right to make those decisions. But staff was very reluctant to see council proceed with this facility, and I think advised against it several times. Council had its reasons for proceeding. I'm never second guess council, but I think it's important that
people understand that staff were saying, yeah, no, don't do this, don't do this. He'd never say I told you so. All right. Anything else? Council.
Yes, Barry.
Councillor Cunningham.
On the Second Avenue Bridge with the, going back to Councillor 80's questions about the extra cost in that, when we passed that contract, it was $2.4 million for the contract and a $1 million contingency fund for overruns. Are these overruns going to be covered by that $1 million?
CAO Pucci.
Thank you, Councillor. At this time, I can't guarantee anything. We are hoping that there is enough contingency to cover some of this. I think there will be some extra costs associated with it, and I think until we start back up with the contractor, which we hope will be by the end of the week, we hope, then we can aggregate everything together, consolidate it, and come up with something that can be presented to council. We will present all of the numbers to council and be transparent on what this cost.
I'm just a little surprised it might go over that $1 million contingency fund, but I guess we'll wait and see. The other thing is the ferry advocacy. CAO Pucci and the mayor have been very vocal on advocacy for the Alaska Marine Highway returning to Prince Rupert, and had several meetings over that. But where we're falling down on our advocacy for ferries is the BC ferry runs. The inequality of the grants from the federal government to the East Coast ferries versus the West Coast ferries is just amazing. It's almost insulting. And I think we should be concentrating some of our ferry advocacy work in our own backyard, as well as with the Alaska one, because Route 10 and 11 are being ignored, and that's Port Hardy to us and then us to Haida Gwaii, and those routes have to be looked at and taken better care of, and getting more subsidies from the federal government as well as the provincial government. They're just getting out of control for people to use, especially in peak seasons when it's tourist season.
Thank you. Anything else, council? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a report from the Chief Administrative Officer with regards to the Totem Pole Program, Haida Gwaii Invitation. Recommendation that council receives the report and supports, I'm never going to try to say it, to pay respect, Gwaihanas Repatriation Ceremonies Project. Motion, please. Councillors 80, Councillor Forster, CAO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor. We heard a really great presentation earlier tonight about this program. Again, they're doing amazing work. They brought it to us, and I think it's really important to say again how they came to us. They came to us in a very open arms manner, and they came to us wanting us to bring us in and be a part of this program without, making us feel small and that we were a contributor. They wanted us to be a part of a solution. I think that was just an amazing way they did it. It was serendipitous. We've been working on this for a while, and I think it all came together. We did put some money aside to support the pole program. There would still be money left to do more things associated with the poles in Prince Rupert. So the recommendation of staff is to move forward with the $25,000 commitment towards the program of the repatriation of these poles. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a report from the Chief Administrative Officer with regards to adoption of the 2025 annual report. Recommendation is that council by resolution adopt the 2025 annual report. Councillor Randhawa and Councillor Forster, any discussion? Councillor 80.
I was going to vote against it until I saw the video.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed?
It is carried. We have a report from planning with regards to development variance permit number 2604 for 800 2nd Avenue West. Recommendation is that council approves the development variance permit 2604. Motion, please. Councillor Randawa and 80. Councillor 80, you want to ask? No?
Have we had? Well, actually, I want to point out a typo somewhere in the tech. It took me a minute to sort out which we were talking about, whether it was 525 2nd Avenue West or 800 2nd Avenue West. And the reason I was confused is that it's clearly about 800 2nd Avenue West, but in the text it identifies 525. So there is a typo there.
Okay.
The only thing that I would note is that this is going to public notification, if I understand it correctly. But there is in there the accompanying letter of interest or concern from the Island Hotel.
This one is for approval.
Okay, well then I'm out of date. But
Yeah.
that's
So
fine.
that's why I thought you were going to ask your question
Yeah.
if we've heard anything from.
Well, I'm noting the Highlander Homes.
Yes,
Hotels.
there is the thing. CEO Pucci, was there any other comments?
Thank you, Mayor. No, there wasn't any other comments. I confirmed that with
Councillor Forster.
Thanks. I have a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
First thing, if I put this all into plain language, because it's a lot. If we approve this, the builder doesn't need to provide parking for any of the units. People would be able to park on the street, and if they parked on the street, they could still be ticketed by bylaw. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if they paid that, what is it called? There's some $12,000. If they did under additional considerations, it talks about special parking provisions. So if the builder paid one time,
Yep.
if I understand, $12,500 per parking space not provided, could they still ticket any of the people that live in the building?
CEO Pucci.
It's a really good question.
I'm just full of
We
good
have
questions.
not ever given out parking passes associated with payment in lieu of parking. Typically on-street parking is on-street parking, which is subject to our bylaws. So I'm gonna ask our Director of Development Services if she has any more information on that.
Director Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the pay in lieu is so that the developer themselves do not have to provide on our off-street parking, so parking on the site. It really wouldn't affect whether or not a tenant of the property gets ticketed for parking longer than they should on the street. So they would still be ticketed if they are parking within the same location for, say, more than 48 hours, or if there's say a 2-hour regulation in place. Bylaw could ticket them there as well.
Councillor Forster.
Thanks. Sorry, a couple more questions. When I'm looking through this, in one of the sections, it says generally, proposed development is generally consistent with the character and intent of the area. It's in the paragraph above additional considerations. Generally does not mean it is. I'm wondering where it's not.
Director Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that statement is just saying it is consistent in most aspects with the character area and the development permit guidelines. And generally, it probably is just the parking that's inconsistent. I'll defer the question to our planner, who is the author of the report, in case there's anything he'd like to add.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. The only thing I would add is, as we have not gotten to the development permit stage, we have not received all the information we would be needing and requiring for it to be approved. So we have not completed that observation. That's the reason why we're talking about generally with the information we have gathered and the information that's being provided. all of that is adequate to the guidelines and to our provisions. That said, more information would be need to be requested.
Counselor.
Thank you, and I hope my final one. In that same paragraph, it says, for these reasons, staff recommend that council allow the application to proceed to statutory notification. Is that a typo? Because I think we heard that this is final approval. So is it, where
Okay.
are we in the process?
Let's get this clear. What are we doing? Are we doing approval or statutory notification?
Thank you. Yes, this report is for final approval. That is a typo within the text.
Thought so. Yeah. You feel exonerated?
I feel better now.
So let's just summarize. This would waive the parking requirements, which we know over time creates a problem, right? Whether every single spot needs a car, there'll be some vehicles attached to it, even if it's half the units. But we're waiving parking requirements in other portions of the downtown. I think this one just misses that, right? Like if you go over to the Lac Olams building at Savon, there's no parking requirement attached to that building. And so I do believe that in the long run, we are going to be creating a longer term problem. And in the short term, I think we're solving a problem in the housing. And I look forward to the day when we find ways of solving the next problem that we create by, whether that's by parkade or, whatever that looks like. And who knows, maybe the problem won't be that great. But we know that Northerners drive vehicles, and we know that Northerners drive big vehicles. And so that being said, I'm still in favor of it. Councillor Randawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You gave my answer I was going to ask because Column housing we gave variance and now this one.
Yeah, it's in the right zone.
Yeah, so it might create some problem or some people want no tickets, right? They want secure their parking. So do we have any planning for that time now? People can park their vehicle and pay their money or something like that. So do we have any planning for that?
Yeah. So CEO Pucci, I'll start with you. The question is, when we create this problem, do we have any plans for how we're going to manage it?
So thank you, Mayor. The way that it works is that when you pay the $12,500, when you pay that money, it goes into a parking reserve fund that then we can develop parking in the downtown core. We can buy a lot, or we could use lots that we have. For instance, we own the lot behind the Lac Olams new build, but over on the corner. It's a hole in the ground, but you could fill it with gravel and create parking there. So that's what that money is typically used for. We do have parking spaces that we have in the downtown core for rent and lease. We have some behind the jewelry store and down by the college, and then we have some over by the totem poles, and we also have some that are down on First Avenue by Lac Olams' building there. So those are the options. You can also buy overtime parking permits, but that would get really expensive if you had to do things like that consistently. But I think really at the end of the day, we would have to look at downtown parking. But I agree. I think at some point we will have a problem around parking.
I think the letter from the Highliner is actually quite a good solution. If they can be encouraged to park along 2nd Avenue, there's usually lots of parking there, even if there's a big event happening at the Highliner or whatever. But that's only there because those properties aren't developed. So when they get developed, there'll be a problem someday. Councillor Niche.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to speak in favor. I mean, I feel that, yes, there is always the potential for parking problems when we live on an island. Our properties are not big and spacious like most communities. And, you have to look at what was the previous use of this building. It was a police station, and I'm sure there was many more cars parking in the area when it was being used as that purpose. And so, you know, the Highliners, I mean, you can say the same thing about that. I mean, you jam a hotel that's 16 stories tall on a block where there's really no parking, very little parking. I mean, it does create a problem. There is no doubt about that. But, you know, I think our downtown is compact, and, you know, if all the people in the world that are favoring electric cars and pedestrian and bicycles, I think if they get what they want, then we shouldn't have to worry about issues with parking in the future. You know, I understand that that's not maybe the reality, but you know, I think people that will move into that building are going to be recognize that there is no parking there. So, you know, I don't think you're going to have somebody moving in there that's going to have in one unit have 3 cars, a travel trailer, and a boat. I think you're going to find people moving into that area are going to be people that recognize that they want to live close to downtown. They maybe have 1 car or no car. So, you know, I don't think it's as big as a problem as one may think. There is definitely times of the day, or maybe when there's events going on in certain areas, that may cause, you know, to be a little bit tighter for parking. But I think generally there's quite a bit of parking in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham. You're muted. No, I'm sure you're eloquent, but.
Yeah,
There we are.
I agree with Councillor Neese. I don't think parking should be that big of a problem. And if it is, it'll work itself out. This pie in the sky parking, 12,500, doesn't alleviate the parking problem. And, you know, I asked a couple of years ago how many dollars we have in the parking fund, and I was told none. You know, the money just seems to go into one fund and get used in general resources. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's already created problems in other parts of the city where people have paid for parking and have no parking. So, you know, and just a couple blocks away, we've been waiving parking requirements and that. So the difference of a block or two, I don't think makes a big deal. I think the fact that we're going to be alleviating some housing problems is a bigger win than a few parking problems. So I'm 100% in support of it.
All right. Any other comments? Thank you, Councillor. All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. The next item is development variance permit, and for this is for 525 2nd Avenue West, and with the recommendation that council proceeds with statutory notification process for development variance permit number 2606. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Randawa and Councillor Forrester. Any discussion? Did we talk all the we needed to on the last one? All right, if there's no discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Report from the Director of Operations, RFT 70018 6th Avenue West Water Main Replacement. Council award RFT 70018 for 6th Avenue West Water Main Replacement to Canapit Industries Limited in the amount of $11,595,755 excluding GST. Motion, please. Councillors Ady and Forrester. Any discussion? Councillor Ady.
Just a clarification. What is pay item 31.4, and why does remedying the underestimation not pose a concern? There is to explain, there is a kind of a qualifier on the recommendation that there's an underestimation that took place in the original bid, and we're told it's not a concern. I just want some clarification.
Councillor or CAO Pucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great question. I talked with our Director of Operations, who's not here tonight, and I think it's pay item number 1.4. If that's what I have here in this report. What it is he told me it was around communications and coordination with the city. They thought the line item was a bit low for that coordination and communication line item, and that is really more at our discretion as well. But we think it needs to be increased because for more coordination and communication with the city. However, even if it was raised significantly, they would still be the lowest bidder. If for some reason we said we want more of this or more of that, the order of magnitude there is not that much in this realm.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. We move on to bylaws. We've got the Good Neighbor bylaw number 3558. Recommendations that council give third reading to Good Neighbor bylaw number 3558. Can I have a motion, please? Councilors Adie and Forster. Any discussion? Councilor Adie.
I have a couple of things. I want to shout out Councillor Niche for accurately predicting that the public might have an opinion on the number of RV type vehicles. I had a joyous trip through Safeway where I heard the same thing quite emphatically, and the concern was limiting the number because in the lifestyle of the North, it's easily predictable that somebody could have an RV, a boat, a quad, and and in the original language of the bylaws as it came to us last time, that was going to be a problem. So I know that staff also anticipated that and heard that and have made a correction to, or made an amendment to it so that people can have two. So my question is, somebody has an RV and they have a boat, and we're told that if there are other things, they can get a permit. So if there was a third, say a quad, what would be involved in getting a valid permit for that?
CAO Pucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and really good question, Councillor. I chatted with our DCAO today, and she informed me that we would likely put a schedule in the back that would have sort of almost a fees and charges and the application process around a permit. But it could be council's desire to increase that number if that's something that council wanted to do, or have a very low rate for a small trailer or something for a permit for a third one.
Councillor Adie.
Well, I think it would be good to remember what the original concern or point is of doing any kind of limiting of these things. It has to do with what happens when a property just becomes an unsightly mess because there's,
right,
it's an overcrowded parking lot full of vehicles, some of which might get used, some of which might be derelict, and so on. So it seems to me that the criteria we should be looking at is how do we deal with a circumstance that has become unsightly. And it seems to me that that might be the avenue for dealing with problem properties, whereas somebody else might have a very well kept arrangement and be in excess of a number, but it's not a problem. So I don't know how we might deal with that, whether there's some way to link it to the notion of unsightly premises and use that as the way of enforcing limits.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I'm going to babble for a moment without providing much help. I do see your hand, Councillor Cunningham. I'll go to you in a second. One of the challenges is it's so property dependent, right? And so owner dependent. If you have a larger yard, you can accommodate those things easily. If you've got room in the back, you can put it in the back. You could have 5 boats in your backyard and all lined up nicely, and nobody would care and nobody would know. And and another guy might have only 2 or 3 vehicles, but they're haphazardly parked wherever. You know, so these are really, I think, really challenging to write appropriate bylaws. You know, and what we're trying to do, I guess, is give our bylaw officers the tools to enforce where they need to, but without running around like a bunch of, I don't know. I don't want to use the word I was going to use to find every do a vehicle count in every yard. Councillor Cunningham.
Would it be beneficial if somewhere in this bylaw they had to be property of the registered owner of the property? Like I've seen some properties in town where there's 3 boats parked in the yard, and they're all from different parts of Canada. Like it's that goes to that. I think the essence of this good neighbor bylaw is keeping a tidy premises, and depending how much you have, it could be tidy or it could be a mess. A boat parked the wrong way and things like that. Just it would be up to. It would have to be written in there somehow, with discretion on how you would handle that. But you start getting into 3 RVs, and it's going to be 3 trailers, 3 boats, not just possibly. You're leaving it wide open for 3 very large RVs possibly. I don't know how it's going to be, like you say, a very tough one to look at, enforce, and write.
Councillor Forster, you looked like you were forming a thought, but
I remember when I was young, you couldn't even leave a vehicle in your driveway without parking insurance on it. And of course now with the change in the stickers and all of that, you don't have that. But I wonder if that might be a different way around it, where there has to be some sort of an insurance as well. I don't know. I'm sort of thinking out loud.
Yep,
I do like the idea of registered owners. I don't know how we would prove that, which I think could get sticky.
Yeah.
But I do think having to have some sort of parking insurance on it would allow, even if it is somebody out of province parking their boat on a friend's yard, that there's some protection and there is some money going towards that. Because you also wouldn't be able to necessarily get parking insurance out of province. We could make that the rule. You'd have to have BC based parking insurance. I don't know, just thinking out loud.
Councillor Niche.
Yeah, I still struggle with this one. I guess it's twice as good as it was last time I raised it, 'cause it's instead of 1. I think generally, if people have multiple toys, I guess you can say, if they did have a trailer and a boat and some quads, and they looked after them, and they had them parked appropriately, I don't think it's an issue. But when there's a 20-year-old trailer that hasn't moved in 20 years, or there's a boat that looks like it's going to sink as soon as it touches water, and that's the problem. And I think that's like, I hate restricting people, the ability of people to have the toys or the items that they want, because that's why they live here. And I feel that should be something that's more enforced with unsightliness, because I just feel that I have a very close to me a trailer that hasn't moved in 20 years, and it's the same thing, right? I mean, that's the part where people get frustrated. People don't get frustrated because Buddy's got a boat. They get frustrated when Buddy's got a boat that's going to sink when it goes to the water. And so, I don't know if we can change it to another portion of the bylaw to make it more of an unsightly thing. I think trying to put insurance and restrictions that way is just going to be a nightmare to manage. So I don't think and I even think this is going to be a nightmare to manage because, you know, we're going to have one neighbor that doesn't like another guy because he takes his parking spot, and he's going to be complaining because he's got 3 recreational vehicles, whereas someone else that has 3 recreational vehicles and has lots of space, it might not be an issue. So, you know, I still am somewhat opposed to this still, as far as the number, because I think it's more about unsightliness and not about the number of what people own.
Councillor Ady.
I guess a way of supporting that is that the reality is somebody could be well within this bylaw and have 2 very unsightly vehicles that are hosting all kinds of long grass and anything else you can imagine. And that is the problem, I think. So it yeah. I'm in agreement with Councillor Niche that I think it's about the unsightliness. So I don't know where we go with that in terms of that particular item. I would not want to see the entire bylaw delayed a long time over 1 or 2 clauses that need some massaging.
Yeah. Councillor or CAO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor. So unsightly is defined. I mean, everyone has the bylaw. So I guess in that it talks about, you know, conditions of disrepair, dilapidation, deterioration, talks about vegetation, you know, dead characteristics, uncontrolled growth, lack of maintenance, untidy storage, building materials, all that kind of stuff. So does council have concern around what unsightly is? I guess if that's what I'm hearing is that, you know, the concern is around what's unsightly and what's not. So is the definition of unsightly incorrect that we can change? Or?
So here's my sense of where we're at is that unsightly is, unsightly. That I think everybody gets it. The challenge is bringing in a number, whatever the number is. It really doesn't matter when one neighbor could have 5 vehicles nicely, neatly parked on a large lot that nobody, and yet they're in violation of the bylaw. And as Councillor Ady says, somebody could have 2 and be fully within, and then the unsightly would kick in if it was truly unsightly, right? Like, that's still there. My sense is, this is my sense of it, Council, and is that there's probably little harm in tossing. I think 2's a reasonable number, and understanding that you're simply giving bylaw a tool to use when they need to use it. Could it be used as a weapon, one neighbor to another? Yeah, I suppose it could be. But you know what? Bylaw is pretty good at not getting into those fights. Like if one neighbor is just being unreasonable with another neighbor and they're using something as a bludgeon on them, it's like, yeah, that's a low priority. We've got lots of other things to look after. So I'm not uncomfortable passing it. I hear the angst. So, Councillor Ady, and I do agree with you. Like, let's not spend the last 4 meetings of our term talking about.
I wonder then if we follow that path, the additional permit maybe not be a fee-based thing, maybe more be an opportunity to have a city person go out and have a look, and if it's fine and well kept, it's not a problem. But it exposes an opportunity to just double check that the property is being managed properly.
So, CEO, I'm saying I like it. I'm just my voice, but I'm seeing some nodding heads. CEO, and I'm going to go to you, Councillor Niche, but CEO Pucci, just to capture that, the question isn't, to buy a permit, although there could be a minor fee, but really as an opportunity to, I know the bylaw says I can have 2. I think my setup's good for 3. Can I get a permit for the 3rd? And yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, that totally possible. With this, it actually talks about that. We can put in a permit, and it can be a nominal fee or no fee, but it could be a staff done one. Yes.
Yeah. So, Councillor Cunningham.
I think the rest of the bylaw addresses a few of the concerns. You know, like you say, if something's been sitting there for 5 years and never left the lot, then that's a problem. And you know, I think unsightly and things like that, that's sort of left up to the bylaw. But I think they'll use their own discretion properly about it. But we could, you know, I know people in town that have 3-4 vehicles or toys, whatever you want to call them, and you know, they're on the side of a house, in front of a house, or behind the house. But you know, they're used quite regularly, so they're in good condition. Somebody that doesn't use it and just has it sitting in their yard, well, that's a whole different ballgame. And so I think most of the problems will be addressed by the rest of the bylaw.
Yeah. Councillor Niche.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to the permitting part of it, because, you know, the reality is that just like any of our bylaws, they're only taken care of if there's somebody complaining. So I think generally if someone's doesn't have a problem with something, there isn't going to be a complaint filed, which means probably nothing is going to be done about it. But if there's someone that's, you know, completely, you know, taking advantage of situations and causing issues for other neighbors, then they're going to get complained, and then you have the tool. Okay, you only are allowed 2, but if they do have the ability to you know, have 3, and a permit can be issued, and you know, to me, it's going to be such a minimal amount of time that it's actually going to be even an issue, probably, that I don't even think a cost should be associated with it. Like, it should just be like, okay, you got a permit, yes, you're allowed to have that 3rd vehicle there, or 3rd you know, trailer or whatever it is. So I kind of agree with that. You know, as much as I hate to see the number, it's better than 1. But you know, it's definitely, it could impact a lot of people if it was, if the bylaw officers drove around and looked in everyone's driveway and said, okay, you're getting a fine, which they don't do with any bylaws. They only, you know, they're reactive to people's complaints. So I think that that's probably not going to change. And when it's an issue, it will arise, and that person can state their case if they feel that they're, you know, they can get a permit, and bylaw officers can make a decision that it's not impacting other people.
So let me read the clause. At the end it says, additional recreational vehicles may be parked or stored only where such vehicles are entirely enclosed within a building, we know that, or unless otherwise permitted under a valid permit. It's there.
Perfect.
So it's really just a matter of implementing the mechanism. Councillor Adie.
I want to make sure we're done with that one before I bring this next one up.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I hope this is much simpler. I noticed the regulation of firewood talks about
yes.
A 4-foot long rack could be 5 feet high, and I just wonder whether that's realistic, because if you go out in the woods and you find a tree that's fallen down and want to grab some firewood, it's coming back pretty wet. It's going to take 6 months to get to where you can use it, and it'll take up all of that 4 feet by 5 foot space. I'm just wondering where that number came from. If I'm not understanding something about why that number, and if there's no sort of reason for that specific number, I would suggest that I could offer an amendment to expand it a little bit so that somebody could have a space for wet wood that's drying out and dry wood that they can go ahead and use.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. C.A. Pucci, do you have any comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm guessing that came from another bylaw that we sourced to sort of for the verbiage of this. So there is no, I don't think there's any issues with amending that from staff.
A cord, which you typically buy a cord of firewood, is 4 by 4 by 8.
Might I offer an amendment?
Yes.
I guess I would. I had a different way of visualizing it in mind, but you're correct. Somebody who goes and purchases some cut firewood might get half a cord or a cord. I would think that the dimensions should allow that person to accommodate that amount of wood.
Accommodate a cord of
Yeah.
a full cord.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the number on the firewood? I read it earlier, but I'm not finding it right now.
The language that's in there right now is
No. What number is it within the?
Sorry, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Mayor, it's a 7.2 E.
7.2. Why am I not finding it? Oh, there we are. Got it. There we are. Okay, thanks.
A cord of wood stacked is 4 feet high, 4 feet wide, and 8 feet long.
Yep.
And that would probably last somebody with a fireplace just about the winter. It's hard to say how much they use it, Again, and if it's a little more than a foot higher or something, I don't think anyone's going to miss that much.
Openly stacked rows nautics. How would we reword this? I'm looking for that. That's all. Unless stored open stacked rows. Yes? Oh, Councillor Nish.
I mean, I'm guessing that, if someone had a fully enclosed shed and they can have as much firewood as they want, as big as the shed goes, I think this is more an issue of just stacked firewood that's, unprotected or very visual. So, I don't, and I mean, I can think of a situation where someone has in town where they have numerous stacks and, in fact, I think they might even be selling it. So, that's probably where someone would probably be complaining because they were looking at rows upon rows and stacks of firewood. So, I think that, if someone typically deals with a lot of firewood, they're probably going to have an enclosed shed for it. And I think this is more a matter of controlling what is stacked unprotected or, just leaning up against the house.
Councillor 80.
I would argue that not everybody has the kind of lot that accommodates a shed, but they may have either a wood stove or a fireplace that they like to use. I guess I'm open to debate about the amount, but I think it needs to be more than what it is.
Right. C.O. Pucci. I'm not getting language.
Well, I mean, I think we're not needing to change the language. We're just needing to change the size, the number, not really the language. So if council is comfortable with the language, it's just really is that is about a half a cord is what I'm looking at the numbers roughly, and what you're suggesting is to go up to a cord of open. So we could just change the numbers there to be 4x4x8 to accommodate a cord if that's what council's desires.
Yeah,
Sorry, but that would be in open view. Like this is what it's talking about, allowed in open view.
yeah, yeah. So the the challenge here is that this is talking about a single row that's 4 by 5, right? Which would be considerably less than a half cord, right? Whereas, anyway,
I'm not opposed to one cord because I feel that that's like mentioned already. That's kind of like if you're buying firewood, you're buying a cord. So I wouldn't be opposed to a cord. I think when you get beyond that, then it probably should be stored indoors or
so it could read, shall remove the firewood therefore unless stored in open stack rows and not exceeding 1 full cord. I'm looking at CEO Pucci before
I would prefer that we could have a measurement there. So if a cord is classically 4x4x8, we could have that in metric and in imperial, so that if we ever had someone complain, that's a cord, and be like, well, that's way more than a cord because a cord should only be around this much.
Okay.
That's my thought. If council is saying a cord is 4x4x8, we should just use those numbers.
Councillor 80.
I would be happy with that.
4x4
I could live with that. You just say a cord of wood, a guy could have a dump in there shaped like a teepee.
Okay, so not exceeding 4x4x8. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
In feet, and somebody else can translate into meters. All right, so can I have a motion, please, to make that change? Councillors 80, Councillor Forrester. Any further discussion? All in favor of the amendment passed? So moving back to the bylaw. Anything else? All in favor of the bylaw? Any opposed? It is carried. Funny how the simple things sometimes can be the most challenging. We know what we want, right? We want neat houses, good, neat neighborhoods. All right, election procedures bylaw number 3561. Recommendation council give fourth and final reading the election procedures bylaw number 3561. Councilors Randawa and Forster, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a highway road closure bylaw number 3672. Recommendation is the council give fourth and final reading to highway road closure bylaw number 3672, subject to approval from the ministry, receiving approval from the Ministry of Highways or Ministry of Transportation. It just normally we would have had it by now. We just don't have it, so we expect it any day.
I'll move that.
Thanks, Councillor Niche. Seconded, Councillor 80. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. We have a recommendation that council give fourth and final reading to highway road closure bylaw number 3673, subject to receiving approval from the Ministry of Transportation. Can I have a motion? Randawa and 80. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. We have highway road closure bylaw number 3675. The council gives third reading to highway road closure bylaw number 3675, 2026. Motion, please. Councilors Forrester and 80. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Council roundtable. Councilor Forrester.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've noticed a lot of notices of community members with animals at large, specifically dogs, and I volunteer at the SPCA, so I'm there a lot, so I'm seeing a lot of dogs coming in. I'm wondering how much time our bylaw officers are spending helping track down these dogs. How many people have a dog license in our city, and what we're looking at for fines. Like, is there a different way that staff might suggest for dealing with people not having licenses, dogs getting out? Is there a better way we can do things?
CEO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. And Councillor did give me some heads up on this, so we have some answers. So we've had 32 dog at large complaints or concerns in 2026 so far. Staff have told me that each of them take roughly a couple hours to deal with. They're not a few minutes each. They have to go and capture and then find owners and things like that. So they do take a few hours. Some are easy, some take longer. With licenses, we have 206 licenses that have been purchased in 2026 thus far. Revenue on that is $6,720. We have 28 tickets that we have issued so far in 2026, and it's roughly $1,400 that are out for ticketing that, if not paid, would go to collections.
See, Councillor Forster.
Thanks. And do bylaw officers or staff have any recommendations of any other options? Making it mandatory that you have to have a license before you can adopt a dog, things like that.
CEO Pucci.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question. So we posed this to staff, and I think we're going to take a little bit more time because I think they want to, really think about it. But they are going to work on maybe some proactive measures and bring back to council through our deputy CAO who runs bylaw at a future meeting. But they thank you for bringing that forward because they think there could be some proactive opportunities there to do this. Yeah.
Strikes me 206 licenses is very low. Like, there's got to be 3,000, 4,000 dogs in the community. Anyway. Anyone else? Any other comments from council? Oh yeah, thank you very much. Thanks. So, in celebration of the U.S. 250th birthday, well, this is a request from the Consul General for the U.S. Consul, who was up here and visiting us. And actually, we had a great visit. I got to tell you, he had asked CEO Pucci to do some research on the Prince Rupert had a U.S. consulate office. And going back to quite early days, first place was up on 4th Avenue West, right? Was the first consulate here in the city. I think going back to the 30s. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. We had one for almost 30 years here. And it started even before. I think it was in the 20s, and and it started in a house up on 4th Avenue and ended in the Besner block next door.
Yeah. So anyway, Consul Crowley wrote and said, as the United States commemorates the 250th birthday, and as we celebrate 165 years the U.S. consular presence in British Columbia and the Yukon, pleased to invite leading U.S. and Canadian companies, organizations, and municipalities to sign on to a statement about the importance of the U.S.-Canada bilateral relationship. And we all know the strain it's been under, but the statement simply says this: we affirm the U.S.-Canada economic and commercial relationship and the special partnerships between American and Canadian businesses, associations, and organizations that contribute to the prosperity on both sides of the border. I would like for the city to sign on to that, but I'm certainly not going to do that just on my... I don't mind saying the mayor of Prince Rupert, but if it's going to say the city of Prince Rupert needs to have the backing of council. I'm wondering if somebody would like to move that we sign on to this declaration. Councillor Rundawa is a mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ady. Any discussion? Councillor Ady.
I guess in my cynical moments, I might imagine that a gesture like this meant in the spirit of all that is good between the two countries might be used for political purposes. I would want to. I'm in favor of it because I think you're right. I think that what we're currently going through eventually we will not be going through, and that relationship will be important. It's important now. It's going to come back to being more pleasantly important than perhaps it is at this moment in history. But I would like to feel that it's not subject to manipulation.
I have no way of guaranteeing how others will use it. I can only ascribe to it the value that we put it at as we sign on it. How do you know? I think it's innocent enough that put it this way. The most nefarious of the troublemakers to the south of us don't need any tools to make their trouble. But I understand if people are reluctant. I get it completely. I just, as we look to reforge that Alaska relationship, bring in the Alaska Ferry. We do it because we believe this to be true, right? Anyway. So. Councillor Forster, you are dying to say something. You're reluctantly.
It's Pride Month, and the things that some people to the south are doing to people right now are appalling. It's absolutely appalling what's happening. Well, I agree, this seems innocent enough. I think where I could get behind it is with a clear statement saying that we don't stand behind what they're doing. Because we don't. Or at least I don't. And I know in the future things might be different in the States again. But right now people I'm really struggling to support anything to do with the States right now.
Fair enough. Unfortunately, the process by which this will be done is I'll go onto a website with your permission, and I will click a yes, and I don't think there'll be any option for me to say anything more or less. So
for me then, I would not support this.
Okay.
I understand why we would maybe want to do this.
Yep.
And it's nothing against
Yep.
the lovely people that came and spoke to us about reestablishing the Alaska Highway.
Yep.
Like, I think that's wonderful.
Yep.
I don't think this is going to make a difference in that.
All right.
Thank you.
Councillor Rundawa.
Yeah, no, I agree with Councillor Forster. Like, you done so much work. You went to Alaska, and our staff doing great work. We need Alaska Ferry. We were working for many years now, but on the same time, I agree with Councillor Forster. I have a hard time to support this one.
Yeah. You will get to vote your conscience. Put it this way: if there's nothing else, all in favor? Any opposed? 3 opposed. Councillors Niche, I need you guys to opposed. Councillor Cunningham?
I'm opposed.
Yeah. Councillor Niche?
I'm opposed.
And did we lose Skelton Mormon? All right. The motion is defeated. Thank you very much. C.A.O. Pucci. Yes. Yeah. So But I need a motion to adjourn this meeting and we go into the closed, I think. Yeah, so motion to adjourn, Counselors Forrester and Ady. All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourning the meeting and going into a resumed closed council meeting. Absolutely. We'll take a 5-minute break.